Kyle's unpopular takes, the issue of the death penalty. Okay, this is an interesting one because this is one where, to this point, a lot of my unpopular takes have been unpopular in the circles I run in, left circles. But they've been popular among the broader public, in the American population. This is one of those issues where it's reversed. It's reversed. So my take is popular among left-wing circles, the circles I run in, but it's unpopular among the broader population, among the American public. So, the death penalty. Polls consistently show the American people are in favor of the death penalty. I think it's well over 50%. Maybe some polls even touch 60% of the American public are in favor of the death penalty. I'm opposed to the death penalty. Now, the reason I'm opposed to the death penalty is a little bit different than most lefties. I'm opposed to it simply because we get the wrong people. There was a study that came out years ago, 5 or 10 years ago, about how 4% of the people on death row are innocent. They're innocent. So if you are okay with the death penalty, you are by definition okay with saying it's okay for the state to murder innocent people 4% of the time. For every 100 people put to death, 4 of them are going to be innocent. It's okay for the state to do that. I'm okay with murder sometimes. I'm okay with my tax dollars funding murder sometimes. If it's only 4%, that's okay. If you were one of those 4 people, you wouldn't feel that way. So that's my bone to pick with it. Now, the other reason is I believe in violence. We'll get to a segment on this as well. I believe in violence only for self-defense reasons. That's the only time I'm morally okay with violence. And this is not a case of self-defense. I mean, you can make a stretch of an argument that this is societal self-defense because this person committed a heinous crime, so we got to get rid of them as a problem. But that doesn't really pass muster if the alternative is you could just keep them in prison the rest of their lives. So, because 4% of the time we kill the wrong people, and I'm only okay with violence for self-defense reasons, I think that the death penalty is immoral, unethical, and I also think, by the way, to make a constitutional argument, it violates the Eighth Amendment protection from cruel and unusual punishment. I think it is by definition cruel and by definition unusual for the government to murder you. So I don't think it's constitutional. I think it's illegal. I think it's unethical. I think it's immoral, and I think it needs to stop. Also, it is applied in a racist way, where a black person and a white person can commit the same crime, but a black person is much more likely to get the death penalty for it. Mandatory minimums work the same way. They're more enforced when it comes to people of color, not as much when it comes to white people. So there's all of these. There's no way you could craft a system where you always get the right people and it's applied fairly and, justice really is blind. It never works like that in the real world. So I think it's a moral obligation to be opposed to the death penalty. But of course, the problem you run into, and this is a problem I run into too, is like when you get somebody who is a mass murderer and incredibly vicious and unrepentant and there's no hope of them to be reformed or rehabilitated, and they do something terrible, and then like some people want the death penalty, do I look at those people and I'm like, you guys need to relax. Don't be unreasonable. No, I look at them and I'm like, I get it. Like, I get it. I get why you want this person to die. I get why you have that feeling of revenge and retribution and you think they deserve this. They deserve nothing better than what they did to their victims. I get it. I think it's logical. I think there's an argument there. Again, I think there are broader reasons, bigger reasons that are overarching which show why we shouldn't do it. But I can never fault people for those feelings if they feel that way, So you can see my take is a little different than most lefties on this, but ultimately I end up in the same place that the death penalty shouldn't be allowed. Most Americans don't agree with us, guys, and we got an uphill climb on this one. We got a lot of work to do to change hearts and minds, because again, between 50 and 60% of the American people say the death penalty should be legal, and they support it. So this is an issue where it's a rare issue where we have an unpopular position with the American public, but I think in due time we can switch it, because in other developed countries, people have already turned against the death penalty, and most developed countries have banned the death penalty. Eventually, we might get there. The Supreme Court did ban it for a little bit, I think in like the 1960s or 70s, but they brought it back, and ever since then, it's still been popular. So we got a lot of work to do, but definitely against the death penalty, and that's another one of my unpopular takes.